Hey guys, good to have you back. All right, in this video, we'll be talking about at property source. So in Spring Boot, we have what we call at property source. And what is that? Property source together. So what does it mean? Where is the source of my property, or where can I find my properties? As simple as that. All right, without much ado, let's just dive into it. All right. Okay, so I have the famous everything Spring Boot project. Now, if you see, I've made one or two changes. Reason what I just did was just there's a place where we actually spoke about. I think when we were discussing scope, right? I had to just reduce the thread because most time when the application is starting up, you will see those thread that is slipping, basically having some significant effect. So I just reduce it to the barest minimum, like 10 millisecond, and here 20 millisecond. All right, so getting into it, all we just need to do, let's go ahead and let's just go to property. Let's get the package for this because we always need a package, remember. So let's get a package and I'll call this property source, right? Property source. So we have property source, or just to make it more, okay, call it PPTY source, right? All right, property source. Okay, now we have property source. So the first thing we're gonna do is to label where we want to get the properties from. Now, most often times, all our properties are always under class paths, right? They can be found in the class path. Now, what is the class path? Class path simply means placing things in your resources folder. So I'll go ahead and create two files. Now you have two options. Spring supports two options. Spring supports .properties and Spring supports .yaml. So you have to pick one of the two, right? Just pick one. I'll always encourage you to be consistent, right? But in this video, I'm going to use both. I'll show you how to use both, but just remember, you must always stick to one. All right, so I'll go with my custom properties. My custom properties. All right, so I have this. So I'll just say username, properties, okay? Properties, I'll just say username. Let me give it something like Zico. All right, then password, I'll just call it Zico _ password. All right, so that's just about it. I don't want to make it too complicated, right? Just to show you how property source works. All right, so let's go ahead and create another property file. This time around, we're going to use YAML. So I'll call this my custom2 dot YAML. All right, my custom2.yaml. So here I'm going to say user, then user.username. Then this will give me, I'll just call it boss. I'll just call this boss, and user.password. I'll call this boss password. All right. So let's have it this way. So now we have properties. We have properties in my custom properties, and we have properties in the YAML. All right, which we can basically use. So let's come in here in the property source. All we need to do is to create a file. I'll just call this. So let's create a file that actually mimics what we're looking for. So say property source config. I'm missing an R. Property source config. All right, I'll label this at configuration, and I believe you've guessed it already. As simple as it is, we're not doing anything extra. As simple as you just go ahead and add at property source. Yeah, property source. It's as simple as that, guys. Property source. You just have a property source. Now, if you explore, now what I did in a way to check when you're trying to use an annotation, now you want to see what is actually contained, just press Ctrl P or Command P on the Mac in between the parentheses, and it will tell you everything that it can take. So in this case, it takes the value, it takes the name, it takes the value, and the like. So what we need in this case is the value, right? So we need the value. So I'll just go ahead and just place value or name, whichever works. So I'll just say value. And if you notice, the value is an array. So I'll just say value, and I'll basically just give it my custom properties. My custom properties. Is that correct? Yep, my custom properties. All right. Check this out. Okay, so we basically have it there, a property source, and we have my custom property, but this will not work. I'm missing something. We have to add class path to it, right? Class path. I'm missing class path. Yeah. So this is what we should have. So class path should be there. You have to prefix it with class path. Then it shows you that that's where it is. So you can use value. You can decide to also take away value, right? Now you can also do something like this. You can also have something like this and then open up this and place this in. It's all valid, right? It's all valid because remember, let's take this off. Remember this value is a what? If you check it again, this value is actually an array. So whichever it works, Spring gives you that flexibility. All right, so I'm just going to take this off just for simplicity, but I'm just showing you guys that it works. Okay, so the very next thing, so let's just create, so what I would do in this case, I'll just implement command line runner that can immediately help us just print something, right? Command line runner, so that way when the application runs, it basically can load it up. I'll be able to see if the property works or not. So then I will basically inject what we call, so you have, I'll basically inject private final environment. Remember, this environment is from org.spring framework core env, right? Please be very, very careful of that env, right? Because I know sometimes you could be using some other libraries and they have this environment, so you need to be careful this from this particular import. All right, so environments, then I put env. All right, since we already have Lombok in, I don't need to actually have I don't need to manually specify the constructor injection. I'll just place it as required Axe constructor, and that would automatically wire in this for us, right? If you're not aware, that is also another thing you've learned today. Awesome. All right, so what we're going to do is just to have a simple print statement, and I'm going to say, I'll just say user, and just print this. I'll just say env.get property user. Okay, cool. Then I also have, let's put a comma here, and I also say password, and I'll have my env, then go get property password, which actually matches what we have here. We have user, okay, username, sorry, we have username and we have password, so it has to match exactly, username and password. All right, without saying anything else, let's just run it. As simple as that. Once it says this, it's able to, once you place it in, it picks up this file and picks every property inside of it and then place it in your context, so you can then access it with the environment, right? Or anyhow, or should I say any other way you want to basically you need to basically access the property. So if you have other ways to be able to access properties, you can go ahead and do so, because this already adds it into the context. But I'll just use this because it's I think it's more flexible in my opinion, but there are other ways to do this basically. All right, so let's just run it. Okay, all right, so you can see, so if you look at it, user, you can see this, you can find it here. So user is found here, user, so I want so user, you can see down here. All right, so user Zico password. That's amazing, right? So let's go over it again, so you can see Zico password. So it's pretty simple. That is basically how to use that property source. Now, when do you need this? Sometimes you don't want to place files, or you don't want to place details in your regular YAML files, right? I want to put extra properties, right? Because sometimes you could be building an application and your properties could become so long, right? So long that it actually fills up your YAML file. So sometimes you just want to separate things, right? You want to have separate configuration files, probably for loading up some files. You want to have separate properties, right? Probably talking to an external public storage, or probably Redis, whatever you want to just have different configuration files. This basically play well. Now, for those asking, okay, what about YAML? All right, so let's get into it. So for YAML, I'm just going to say, I'll just copy and paste this. Please don't do this at home, right? Please don't do this. Don't do this, right? So I'll just copy and paste this. Right now, this is for YAML. Then we have to what? Go and basically place in the name for YAML. So I expect it should be to the YAML, which is my custom to the YAML. All right. However, there is an issue that I need to make you aware of, right? Our property source does not support YAML by default, so you need to write a configuration and inject it as a factory. So if you look at this, like I mentioned earlier, Control P or Command P, because it doesn't support, it gives you a way to be able to extend. So we need to create a factory file, right, and inject it in one of these parameters, which is this part, which is the factory file. When we do so, then it will see it. So before proceeding, I'll just go ahead and just add this ignore resource not found. I'll just place this. Ignore resource not found. I'll set it to be true. Set to be true, right? You can make it false. That's if you ignore the resource if not found, right? Or ignore resource if found. So you can decide. All right, then we have the factory. Now the factory is where we're then going to wire things in. All right, so before we proceed, let's see how we labeled our YAML file. So I'm going to go here and split right. So split right. So this is user.username. Says different, so it will be user dot username. It needs to match. Then user.password. Then user.password. All right, so we have that configured. So let's go ahead and then configure our what's the name now? Let's configure our YAML properties, because like I mentioned, it's not supported by default, so we need to basically place a YAML file. If we don't place it in, it will not work. So I just go in and just call this, I just call this my YAML property, my YAML property source factory. All right, so let's create this and we implement, because if you look at this, we implement property source factory. How did I know that you're supposed to implement it? Very easy. Now, most often time when you use an annotation or use a library, just go into that library, look at the definition. Now it's saying factory. See, it says whatever you implement must extend property. So meaning it must be of type property source factory. That is how I know that's exactly what I need to extend. All right. So as a result, now I'm actually implementing this. So what it means, I have to implement the methods, right? So this method now tells me how I need to bring this in, right? I need to bring this in, and it's pretty simple. All I just need to do is, I've already been provided with a YAML property source bean, right? I already have a YAML property factory bean. It's already provided for you, even though it's not supported by default. This has already been provided for you. YAML properties factory bean. So I have YAML property factories bean. So basically, I just bring this in. So I have my YAML. So I rather prefer to call this factory. Call the variable factory, right? I'm taking it step by step. So this is already provided by Spring, because they're aware that you would basically want to bring in YAML property source. All right, so then how do we finish up? We just basically add factory, then we add the set resources, then we set resources, we then place in a resource. And what is the resource? The resource is basically found here. Resource is found here. So just bring in the encoded resource dot get resource. Basically as simple as that. Then we then bring in the main properties. We have a properties file. There's this properties in Spring. Properties, yeah, from Java util, because remember we want to inject it into the environment. So we have the properties, then basically that will be getting the factory.get object, because the factory.get object gives you, if you look at it, get Java util properties. So now we are transforming this into the properties. Now we need to then make it available by saying return new properties property source. So property source, then you place in the resource, get encode file name. Oh, thanks Spring. So Spring is going to give me the autocomplete, so you just bring this in, as simple as that. So this is all you need, right? This is all you need. This is a one-time configuration, so anywhere you intend to use property source for YAML, you could always inject multiple in. Okay, so now this is done. I'll just bring this in, come here and just place in this on my class representation. That is it, guys. As simple as that, you have things configured, right? So I'll go over this again. Remember, this is quite straightforward. All you just need to do is just basically bring in this YAML properties bean, which is already available in Spring. As you can see, it's already available in Spring. Just bring this in, then set the property sources, which is already coming from this. But after placing it in, then you just get the object already gives you something around Java util, then you create this and you're done. All right, guys, so it's as simple as that. Very straightforward. All right, so why is this complaining? So this is complaining that we should basically mark this property as not null, right? Remember earlier, guys, I added a marker for this JetBrains, saying that if you have things you need to mark at not null and the likes, you can basically use this marker. It doesn't have any performance issue or anything. At least it just gives you, it's just like indicator for guys that are going to inherit your code that, hey, don't make this nullable. All right, so I'll just go ahead and just add at not null. All right, and that basically fixes that. Now There's no other configuration. Everything is done. It's that simple, right? It's that simple. So let's look at the flow. The flow is property source. I put in the property source name, which is my custom to.yaml. Then I have ignore true, and I've set this in. So without much ado, let's just run this. Now what I'll do is I'll place this as a YAML. I'll call it YAML.user, and I'll call this YAML.property so we can easily find it. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. All right, so as you can see, look at it here, YAML.user null, YAML.password null. Okay, so this is giving me null. It means I did not bring in something correctly. All right, so let's look at our custom to class part. Let's go by it again. Okay, we have the user.username, user.password. Okay, that is clear in itself. So let's go back. Property source. Okay, so this is class path, and this is my custom. Oh, look at the issue. I missed the S here. I missed the S. So I'll go ahead and rename this. I'll place the S here, and we'll just place this in. All right, you see, oh, amazing. So you can find it now. Okay, so let's just go ahead and run this again. All right, and as you can see, YAML.user, boom. YAML.password, boom. It means we are able to find it. Now, before we end this video, I'd like you to know that if you have multiple, let's say you have more than one configuration file, and you want to inject them into in the same, should I say, in a common place, there is also another annotation for you. And that is you can have at property sources. You can see at property sources. So you can then use this, that property sources. You can see it then takes property source value. You can then combine multiple, right? You can combine multiple, right? So you could have something like this. Something like this, then bring in something else. So what that means is I can just go ahead and just take this here. Let's take this. I just want to show you that it's also available. I'll just comment this out. If I comment this out, I bring this in, I can also place this here. It typically works. All right, so what did I do wrong? Let's see. So this has add value. Okay, so it wants me to add value, and the value should take what? Okay, so it wants me to have value. Then I bring this in. All right, so basically that works. So let's go ahead and run this again. Now let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and run this again and see what happens. So what I'm going to do, let's copy this print statement and drop it in here. So you see I'm loading properties and YAML together. All right, so let's run this and see what happens. And as you can see, boom, this also works, right? It also works. I could place this together, but trust me, this will become confusing very fast, right? Because you're using properties, you're also using YAML. It's not advisable at all. Always use one, right? Like I always recommend, always use one. Now, however, Spring also gives you something amazing, which is you could also use more like you could also infer the names, right? So instead of me placing properties these are properties and this is the YAML, right? I could basically say I could narrow this down, right? But it will be hard to interpret because I have two. So what I'm going to do, let's create another custom properties. I'll call this custom properties 3, right? My custom 3.properties. Then I'll just call this equal 2, equal 3, right? I just have that. Basically, I just call this username 1, password 1. So we just make it distinct. All right. So I have this password 3. Now let's go back. I just wanted to show you guys that this is there. So what I will do is I'll come back here and just comment this back in. So for you guys to know that okay, this is also available for YAML. All right. So property source, I'm going to comment this out in case you want to use it later in the future. All right. So I'll go ahead and comment this out. Okay, cool. All right. Now what I wanted to show you is now that I have a property source. Okay, why is this complaining? Let's see. Okay, I have this. Okay, now, all right. So I'll just leave this in here to just make you guys know in case you want to use it in the future. Know that you can combine both. It works. Now, what I wanted to show you guys is now. So look at something amazing, right? This starts with my custom. This also starts with my custom, correct? So I can do, because it starts with my custom, I could basically say anything that starts with my custom star, right? Anything that starts with my custom star. So what that does for me is it will wire this in, it will also wire this in, right? I hope that's clear. To wire this in, it will also wire this in. So what I will do, I'll then change this. Let's bring this in. Let's call this user 1. This is the 1, and let's call this user password 1, right? Password 1. All right, so I'm gonna bring this password 1, and I'll call this user 1. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. So let's just validate. Okay, username 1. Am I missing this? Username 1, password 1. So username 1, password 1. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. All right, so let's look at it. And what can you find out? Zico 1, password, Zico 2, password 1, Zico 3. You see, this basically works. It gives me exactly what I need. So you could also use this. Now, if they have a common name, let's say they have something in between, you could also place the star in front here. It basically works, right? Let's just do that finally. So let's rename this to my custom. I'll just call this okay, you know what, let's create another just to make this point clear. I'll call it Z my custom, or Z custom the properties, right? So you can see that it all ends with custom, right? This ends with custom. So I can bring this 1, 2, 3 together. And how can I do that? Right, so let's just bring this one in also. I'll bring this in and just bring this in. Let's call this 2, and let's call this 3, and let's call this 3, and let's call this 4, just to separate things, right? So how can I bring it together? I can say I want star here and I want star here. What it's going to do is, you see, it matches. That's what I'm trying to bring out. You see, it matches everything correctly, right? Spring is already showing me here. It matches everything. So it matches my custom because it ends with custom, right? Or custom is in between. Then this also, custom is there. This custom can also be found. I hope this is clear, guys. So if I go ahead and just run this basically, and I bring this 2, I bring this 2, and I bring this 2, and I bring this 2, right? Is that correct? Okay, so let's just go ahead and run it. Okay, you can see everything basically wires in properly. I hope that is clear, guys. I'm going to check this in, and you can always find it. You always find the link in the description to see the issue that I've committed with against on GitHub and to see how this works basically. So this, I hope this has been very helpful, right? This has been very helpful. And I'm sure that it has been, you now understand basically how to use our property source. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.